Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, that time of year has arrived on this channel, the time to analyze the different pairings of each team on the grid of the big circus, trying to figure out who has the best chance of beating their teammate in Formula 1 in 2026. Because as you know, in the big circus, your teammate is your main and biggest rival to beat, because that's the one the driver is directly compared to in terms of pace. And as always, we'll go team by team, seat by seat, analyzing the different pairings and which driver might be able to beat their teammate by perhaps having a better chance of doing so. As always, this video will be divided into two parts, and in this one we'll talk about 6 teams in a random order, leaving the remaining 5 for the last video next week. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the analysis of who will beat their teammate in Formula 1 in 2026. Subscribe. To start off this video, let's begin with one of the pairs whose 2025 result was a surprise for many. The battle in the Husky team for the second consecutive season will feature the duo of the experienced Esteban Ocon and the very talented young Oliver Berman. In fact, last year, Berman was the only rookie to beat his experienced teammate at the end of the season in the drivers' standings. So it's time to analyze whether Berman can do it again, or if this time Ocon will show his claws and win the battle. Last year confirmed the immense talent of British driver Oliver Berman. Not only did he once again showcase his enormous ability to quickly adapt to circumstances and be competitive, but once he settled in and understood the car perfectly, he dominated. Esteban Ocon consistently used his natural speed race after race. By season's end, he felt more in tune with the car, helping him reverse the gap in the standings. Though the fight started close, everything was ultimately decided in Oliver Berman's favor at the end. And if you remember in the prediction we made last year, I told you that the young Brit seemed to me like one of those few rookie drivers who had the ability to beat his teammate. And in the end, that's exactly what happened. I don't doubt that Berman has the ability to do it again, and spoiler, I think he will do it again. The only problem now is that he's facing a rule change. And in these kinds of changes, experienced drivers usually take more advantage to quickly find the new tricks in the regulations. And with a full season in Formula 1, it's clear that the kid still has things to learn. However, in the right hands, this new technical regulation is also a perfect opportunity if you have the right tools. And Berman has always shown a surprising ability to adapt, which has always allowed him to perform well even when he has had to be a reserve driver. So with this particularly useful skill, if he quickly gets the hang of these new vehicles, he will neutralize the disadvantage he would have at first due to his inexperience. So these are the cards that Oliver Berman has. Honestly, these are very positive for this confrontation. Esteban Ocon is coming off a painful defeat against the young Brit since he led the project, and being beaten the way he wasn't to his liking nor to his team principals, who described it as a disappointing result. And it seems that a big part of the slump he had, especially at the end of the season, was due to the latest updates where he didn't feel comfortable with the car's response and wasn't able to adapt to keep performing like Oliver Berman did. And that's where he was most affected. Because of these circumstances, it was in the qualifying sessions where he couldn't get as much pace out of the car. He has already received a warning and can't afford to have another underwhelming season. And that could bring out his more extremely competitive side with his teammates. The one that Checo Pérez and Fernando Alonso really enjoyed at the time, you know, tough and uncensored camaraderie. However, his big advantage is his experience, which can allow him to adapt better to these new regulations and make the most of his abilities. But if he struggles to adapt to the car again like last year, could he repeat the same cycle? And he needs to improve in qualifying sessions, because with these cars, where it looks like overtaking will be very difficult, starting at the back of the grid will mean a lot of trouble when it comes to making overtakes. He has proven his speed and strength on the track for years. He has shown it before, but it was his lack of adaptation that doomed last season, so the key for him to have a good season is to quickly get in sync with the car. But even last year I said that Berman had the ability to beat him, and we were talking about his rookie season. With the experience he has now and that incredible speed, and above all that great ability to adapt, I see it as very likely that Berman can come out on top again. And that's why I'll name him as the winner in my personal prediction. Which makes me wonder if this year Ocon will show his less cooperative side, or if the party will continue peacefully in 2026. Racing Bulls is one of the few teams that will have a different pair in 2026 compared to last season, since this year they'll debut the only rookie driver of 2026, Lindblad, who will team up with the already experienced Lawson as his teammate. So, just like in 2026, we'll see the only rookie versus veteran duel on the grid, and it's time to see what cards each of the drivers has in this matchup. The young Lindblad has the advantage that, by entering during this regulatory change, everyone is starting from scratch. He won't need to catch up to drivers who already know how this vehicle works, so everyone will start equally. However, that's also a disadvantage, because his limited experience in Formula 1 means he'll have to learn both the pace of the category and, with very little prior experience, not only how to drive a Formula 1 car properly, but also how to handle these vehicles. And the thing is, Lindblad, based on what he's shown before reaching Formula 1, is an extremely fast guy with some very impressive flashes, but he's very inconsistent. A guy who today can give you the most impressive race of the century and tomorrow disappear completely. That's what happens to him in Formula 3 and Formula 2, and in a category as complex as Formula 1, inconsistency kills. And if you add that to a new car, a complex technical regulation, and having to learn about Formula 1 while also showing his skills, it's definitely not going to be an easy task. Fortunately for him, he's in a team where the goal is exactly to be a platform where rookie drivers can perform with less pressure and get the most out of their potential. And the faster he learns to be quick but also consistent, the more chances he'll have to beat his teammate. On Liam Lawson's side, if he showed us anything in 2025, it's that he's an all-or-nothing driver. He either has the race of his life with a great result or makes absurd mistakes that cost him key results. And this isn't just something from 2025, really. Lawson has always been like this. So for better or worse, his aggressiveness ends up being his best weapon. He's the kind of guy that if he's having a great day, he'll get the most out of the car and have a great result, and if not, he'll crash into someone or just be nowhere to be seen. If he learned during last season, we'll see more of his speed with a smarter kind of aggressiveness. And if he manages to combine that, Lawson could get the most out of his talent, and of course, after a season and a half of experience in Formula 1, he should have more than enough tools to figure out the secrets of those cars much sooner than his teammate can. That said, Lawson can't afford to lose to Lindblad. Since his reputation is already badly damaged after being demoted by Red Bull, being beaten by a rookie won't do him any good in his hopes of staying in Formula 1. In this battle, both of them have speed but are also very inconsistent, so I think experience will decide this fight. And I believe that Lawson will be able to beat Lindblad, who actually doesn't have to beat him to convince Red Bull to keep him for another year, but rather stay close to him, show progress, and improve race by race. But with the cards on the table, I think that if this time we see Lindblad, a more mature Liam Lawson, he can easily win this battle as long as he doesn't lose his head in every race he competes in. One of the toughest predictions is coming up, and not for the reasons many might imagine. Cadillac will make its official debut in Formula 1 in 2026, and after building a car in record time, they will put it on the track to compete with the rest of the teams in the championship. However, the North American team, being a new team, is still putting all the pieces in place and learning the pace, which therefore makes it very likely that competitiveness won't be something they have, and the back of the grid will most likely be their position, at least in 2026. To cut down on development time, gain knowledge, and add experience, they will have a duo with thousands of kilometers under their belts in Formula 1, Valtteri Bottas from Finland and Checo Pérez from Mexico, who actually share very similar profiles. Drivers with a lot of experience in Formula 1, both of them Grand Prix winners. Both have been world runners-up, and both have worked with world champion teams that dominated in their respective eras. They're also returning after not competing for a year in 2025. Maybe that's why many people think this is one of the hardest battles to analyze because of how similar both profiles are, but no, I wish that were the reason. The real problem comes from the position the team will have, where the back of the grid awaits them. As always, predicting who will outperform their teammate on a backmarker team unlikely to compete for top spots. They need the skill of their surroundings. Also, Litoro and Americans. Very good. He will gain an advantage that will be very hard to beat under normal conditions. Besides, Cadillac will care very little or practically nothing about a teammate rivalry in a structure that is still being organized and growing. So if, for example, Bottas finds himself in a very difficult situation to beat, subtituli subtitul, they absolutely won't care about this fight, and it's very likely that they'll end up swapping positions to safeguard a result that could be gold for the team. So we're not only talking about how it's highly likely that luck will decide this duel, but also that for Cadillac, and even for the drivers themselves, they won't mind losing a result if it secures something more important like points for the team. But despite this, there is a way to know who might have a better chance of taking advantage of a stroke of luck. And as always, the best way to take advantage of a chaotic race is to be well positioned on the grid. That is, the one who qualifies better has more chances to achieve an unexpected result. Understanding this, both Checo and Bottas have a particular strength. In the case of the Mexican driver, it's his race pace and the excellent way he manages the tires, which would be extremely useful if the car were naturally able to fight for points. However, qualifying performance is one of Valtteri Bottas' specialties, as he has always been known for being extremely efficient in these moments. He may not be the fastest over one lap, but he's always reliable in qualifying. His 100%, 3 appearances during his time at Mercedes, and the 20 points positions that Lewis Hamilton took from him in the Silver Arrows team are strong proof of that. So it's not wrong to say that in this duel, Checo's strength is race pace and Bottas' strength is single lap pace. And remember what I told you earlier, whoever qualifies better is the one who has the best chance to take advantage of a stroke of luck. So yes, anything can happen in this battle. Checo could start last, use a risky strategy to reach 10th and still score points. Or maybe Bottas qualifies better, the race turns chaotic, he gets a stroke of luck and ends up scoring the points, or maybe neither of those scenarios happens and in the end, it all comes down to the best finishing position. Anyway, based on the logic I just explained, if Bottas is much more consistent than Checo in qualifying sessions, he'll have a greater chance of doing it. However, I think Checo's race pace is extremely strong when he feels comfortable with the car, and that will also give him a chance to pull off an unexpected result with some extravagant strategy. But anyway, at the end of the day, as I've been saying, it's very likely that this duel will end up being decided by luck when it shows up for one of the two drivers at a tough moment. So my prediction will be Checo Pérez for this matchup, but really, as I said, anything can happen, especially if we take into account that the back of the grid is the most likely position Cadillac will have in 2026. Williams will repeat the lineup seen in 2025 with Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz, who surprised everyone this 2025 by securing 5th place in the Constructors' Championship. And in 2026 the same was expected. But the situation definitely won't be the same when Williams arrives with an overweight and difficult to handle car. However, both drivers' 2025 seasons were surprisingly similar, but at different times of the year. Albon dominated the battle at the beginning while Sainz struggled greatly, and in the second half Sainz achieved all the positive results, including 2 podiums, while Albon kept struggling and struggling. They were very similar seasons, but interestingly they were completely different in terms of when their performance peaks happened. However, this year Carlos Sainz has something he didn't have at the beginning of 2025, which is an understanding of both his car and the way his team works. During the first part of the year, between bad luck and many mistakes, as well as not being 100% in sync with the car, the points gap between them became huge up until the Italian Grand Prix. But once the Spaniard felt comfortable with the car, and with the aggressive adjustments the team started making to the setup, he found his best form and was able to close a gap of more than 50 points with his teammate, finishing just 9 points behind him. If from the beginning Carlos gets along with the car without having to adapt so much to the team or to a car he doesn't know, as happened last year, it's more likely that we'll see the best version of the Spanish driver from the start of the season, more like the one we saw at the end of 2025. And if Carlos connects with the car from the start, it's more likely that he'll be able to get results from it, even though Williams is expected to have difficulties at first and be a car at the back of the grid. I'm not saying that Albon is a bad driver, but if 2025 showed us anything, it's that when the team adopted aggressive car setup philosophies, Albon got lost in his driving style, and it's not the first time this has happened to him, since we saw something similar in 2024. If Williams decides to adopt these setup philosophies again, which it really looks like they will, trying to maximize the car's performance, Albon could find himself facing the same difficult conditions he had last year. However, if Albon feels comfortable from the start, it's a guarantee. He's a driver who has speed and knows how to take advantage of chaotic situations, which will definitely be great for him to get results if Williams is a backmarker team. So this duel could be decided by luck, since for now they seem to be a backmarker team. If that doesn't improve this year, it will depend on who is more comfortable with the car. From the start, since the team's upgrade focus will be on reducing weight rather than changing the car's philosophy. However, my prediction will be Carlos Sainz, who we know is capable of being very efficient with the team's results once he adapts. And if last year he finished so strongly, I have no doubt that if he has a solid start, he can clearly win this battle. Red Bull Racing begins its phase as a constructor, creating its own power units in Formula One in its new era, without Christian Horner, without Adrian Newey, and without Helmut Marko, in a different era for the energy drink team, which, at least based on what we've seen in preseason, will remain part of the group of leaders. However, their lineup will change, but Max Verstappen remains the spearhead of the project. But this time his teammate will be the young Frenchman Isaac Hadjar, who has just been promoted from the Racing Bulls team to now be part of the team. Yes, the management, the engines, and the second driver have changed. This won't change anything. Max Verstappen leads the team, and I won't waste more time on this prediction. I'll do what we all know will happen. Max Verstappen will be the winner of this duel, since it's clear that the team will keep working around him, and it's obvious that he's still the best driver on the grid, so it's unthinkable that anything will change his dominant position in the main team. Now the thing here is to focus on whether Hadjar will be able to survive the challenge. And even though we don't have a clear indication right now of whether such a radical philosophy will continue to exist, in the Red Bull team, Lauren Mekies has been more willing to help Yuki Tsunoda since last year when he was having difficulties with the car. So, while Verstappen is still the project's spearhead, more focus may now go to how work is handled on the car in the second garage. And with that, Hadjar won't suffer what other drivers have suffered. Obviously, Isaac has shown himself to be a very fast guy, and his surprising results from last season are proof of that. The thing is, as I'm telling you, the second Red Bull seat is very hard to manage. During the Horner era, the second seat received little attention compared to the main garage. And that led to the second driver experiencing problems on multiple occasions that were never solved for him. It happened to Pierre Gasly, it happened to Alex Albon, it happened to Checo Pérez, it happened to Liam Lawson, and it also happened to Yuki Tsunoda. I think that most of us, when we heard about Hadjar's signing, didn't feel like it was a step up in his career, since we've seen how that second seat has destroyed the careers of so many drivers along the way. Supposedly MX wants to fix this, but it's one thing to say it and another to actually do it, since the formula they followed had worked very well for them until the crisis of 2024 began. If that's true and ultra-radicalization ends, Hadjar could survive in this tough environment. I'm not saying to fight Max or race wheel to wheel, just survive and prove it. What's clear is he'll win. He's the best driver on the grid. The question in this duel is whether Hadjar will have the tools Lawson and Tsunoda lacked. And with that, he simply focuses on growing and unleashing a talent that surprised the grid in the year 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, let's discuss who many consider the favorites for 2026. Personally, I'm not sure to what extent I would consider them the favorites, but undeniably, Mercedes is in a much better position than they've been since 2022. So, whether they're the favorites or not, they're facing their first real chance to fight again for the throne they lost in 2021. And the pair they'll have for that are two young drivers. One has experience in Formula One since 2019, and the other is a guy who debuted in 2035. George Russell and Andrea Kimi Antonelli will once again be the pair for the team that aims to be world champion this season. But the question raised by the Mercedes team garage is whether Russell will be ready for what that means, and how will Antonelli handle that pressure with only one season in Formula One. Starting with the British driver, Russell is a driver who has proven his worth on more than one occasion. After Hamilton left the team, he rose as the new leader. And it's a position he has managed very well, since year after year you can see improvement with the Brit. And despite finishing in 4th place among drivers last year, most fans and journalists in the paddock consider that he was part of the top 3 of last season. However, if it's true that Mercedes has a winning car, Russell will face a terrifying experience that he has never lived through in his entire life, the pressure of a title battle, which can be easier to handle if he's only competing with his teammate, or more difficult if several teams are involved. Nevertheless, Russell has proven to be a guarantee of speed and above all effective at winning. It's not for nothing that, over all these years, Russell has been known as Mr. Consistency, and in a title battle, being fast matters, yes, but it's even more important to be able to achieve those good results race after race. And that weapon will be very useful not only in a possible title battle, but also in the showdown he'll have against his teammate, whom Russell completely crushed in 2025. There were very few occasions, practically 3 races, the only times in the entire past year when Antonelli was able to beat him. Obviously, he was up against a young rookie driver who had a lot to learn, which made the task easier. And on his part, he has to keep up that overwhelming level so that Kimi doesn't get out of control later on. On the side of the young Italian, 2025 showed 2 things about him. His flashes are absolutely impressive, but he is tremendously inconsistent. He's a guy who, if he doesn't feel comfortable with the car, can go completely unnoticed for 8 races, but in the 9th, if he feels comfortable with the car, he pulls off a pole position out of nowhere, gets into the zone, and fights for the win in a race, or ends up making a crazy comeback with an incredible pace. Kimi will have to learn to show more flashes of talent, being more consistent with his performances, while at the same time facing a title fight at just 19 years old. So I just want you to imagine the pressure this guy's about to face, who debuted in Formula 1 just a year ago, and whether he's ready or not, these will be the conditions I'll have in 2026. I've always believed in and defended the talent of Andrea Kimi Antonelli, but it's undeniable that he's about to face the final boss of this game, maybe with the best sword, but still wearing the tutorial armor. And beating Russell looks very difficult unless the kid has not only improved in all the areas he was lacking last year, but has also mentally prepared himself for what's about to happen. That said, when Kimi beat Russell last year, he did it with a lot of authority. For example, in the Brazilian Grand Prix, where his pace was absolutely perfect. In the Qatar Grand Prix, where he was completely missing, but even so, it won't be enough to beat Mr. Consistency if he can't make every race a spark of talent like the ones he showed us in the lower categories. In that context, although I think we'll see a much better version of Andrea Kimi Antonelli, who might not be able to polish all the details he missed last year but will improve in several of them, my bet is still on Russell. It would be a monumental and very pleasant surprise, I have to admit. It's an experience, and since he still has much to improve, I think it'll be tough for him to win the Mercedes team battle. So, I predict George Russell will win this duel. Although in this world of Formula 1 there are always surprises, we'll see if Kimi is one of them throughout the season.